We're talking about what makes the human condition, and how can technology play into that in ways that make sense from a Christian theological perspective? And what are the ways that technology can play into that in ways that seem problematic from a theological perspective? And discussing that question from a variety of different angles, I think. Within disability theology, clearly technology has a huge impact on people's lives, and that can be really good. That impact can be really positive. But it's also true that in that same arena, technology can have very harmful impacts depending on how these questions are framed. So I think, yeah, thinking about human nature, its interaction with technology, and then for me specifically, how does that play out in the smaller field that is people with disabilities? Some of the most interesting comments that I've heard this week that really resonate with what I've been researching, people seem to be really interested in this idea of limit, and that word keeps coming up again and again. And from what I've been doing, I'm looking at what Dietrich Bonhoeffer has to say about the idea of limit, and the idea that within what it means to be human, the limit is integrated into that in the creation narrative. And not only is it integrated, it's not integrated in a neutral way, it's integrated in a positive way. Bonhoeffer sees human limitation as grace from God. What that means for Bonhoeffer is that by knowing that we are limited, we realize that we do not have to live out of our own resources constantly. We can live, he articulates it by saying, we can live from the center which is God. We do not have to occupy that center ourselves. And sort of taking that idea from Bonhoeffer and bringing it into discussions in disability theology has been really fruitful, because people like Deborah Creamer talk about limit as well. And what she's saying is that, again, we need to take seriously the fact that all of humanity has limits. We can't pretend that some people magically don't have any limits. That's simply unrealistic. But she does say that there's a difference between accepting that humanity has limits and saying that we cannot overcome any of our specific limits. On the contrary, she's trying to say, if there's a limit that you feel is imposed on you, that is oppressing you, that is, that you could creatively overcome and you want to try to creatively overcome, you should do it. And so that's a really interesting tension, I think, that has, for me, in the conversations I've been hearing, been resonating a lot, that difference between some limits that we could and should maybe try to overcome, and technology might be able to help us do that, against this idea that kind of ontological limitation is something we should not be challenging.